biased because I'm an artist.
And that's a lot of the problem, because those who are making decisions, bigger decisions about education and emphasis in education are often not artists, they're often not art educators, and maybe part of our business is also to have more art educators being part of that decision-making process as time goes along. But it's hard when you have a principal, for example, or a superintendent that spent X number of years as a physical education teacher. It's harder sometimes to understand, for certain people it's harder for them to understand,
We're living in a period where common sense is threatened. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it's getting worse. But as far as like where art stands, I mean, we've always been sincere. And always the first ones to get chopped when it comes to like, okay, we got to get rid of this person who's either saying too much or a little bit off the wall, and it's like, so it's interesting to sort of realize in my own journey, I do it as absolute necessity. I'm an addict, and but to have actually kids who actually are inspired by my journey. I mean, there's nothing like that. I mean, it's like that's the final payoff. I mean, you're an addict, right? It's like to have people actually say, I'm in on this, and it's like this is actually a wonderful journey. It's like there's, if you guys can continue to sort of push and press and make sure that we need visuals. We need to actually, that's, a form of not only communicating, but realizing each other. So I'd say as we sort of like push through this, it's like I mean, like I said, I can't wrap my head around the very idea that it's threatened. But to have you guys hear and hear that children are using the program as a tool, it's like, it's like, yes, I like that. I just feel like I can flex. Yes, but like, I mean, starting out, like even like, I mean, I grew up in the projects, and I didn't know anything about what, the fine arts were. I mean, I was definitely, an abstraction, abstractionist, because I was living, like near the dump, and I was like, pulling things and like trying to build from that. But I was also, they had a great deal of facility. So with like, like DC Comics Heavy Metal magazine and Marvel Comics, I mean, that was, one of the kind of, I thought that's what art was. Like Norman Rockwell, Maxwell Parrish. I mean, it was like, a step at a time, and then all of a sudden, boom, Jackson Pollock, and then the floodgates open. So I think that, it was important for me in the Art21 program to introduce, okay, drawing, is actually, like this is the lead-in, your introduction to like your creative self. But it should not stop there. Obviously, you can see more space in here, but the idea of growth, development. I mean, I'm still pushing. I'm actually on my way to China, and we'll be there for 5 weeks, working with artisans who create porcelain, and we're talking. Obviously, China is like the mother of this material. So it's like, okay, so I need to sort of like, get out, add to my language.
Well, travel affects your work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the programs too,
Yep.
right? I think they did at least 3 or
Yep.
2 or 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one was on travel. I know it was in Peru. One to touch the Nazca lines. And I just move around because it's just all of this is words that are become a part of your vocabulary. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to call on these things. They become you. You're a receiver of information. You're an antenna. And as you sort of move around, these things become you. I mean, my journey is also becomes my helpers' journeys. They come in with their stories and their families, and it's like I don't have a family, so it's like now I'm connected to a larger sense of and also there's purpose to all that too. Mm-hmm. So it's an ongoing kind of like cause and effect, as you sort of create. And when I see children, it's like, man, it's like they camp outside my studio. I don't know if you guys saw. There's like a ton of children in its neighborhood, and it's like there's nothing like that. It's like being able to sort of connect with young spirits, and and you guys know this because you're dealing with it. So it's like the questions they have, the contrariness of them, like the testing of you.
Do you find kids have different reactions to your work than adults?
I mean, I steal from them all the time. I mean, really. I'm working on now a piece that will be in the center of Madison Park. You guys know Madison Park?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like it's going to be like a gigantic rug, but sitting in the grass. That city aspect actually was influenced by the kids, because they will always look at the work, when I'm working on them, and they say, oh, I can see the Empire State Building, it's a cityscape. So I was like, why not take advantage, and these things go up on the wall, you can see them all over, but, but if you become the giant, I mean, you're now looking down onto this civil city in the grass, so it's like, I was like, well, why not take advantage of that perspective? And at the same time, I didn't have to create a 50-foot tall sculpture in the middle of Madison Park. That, with certainty, in bad weather, would have decapitated somebody. So I was the voice of reason in that room when they had sitting with me, because they wanted to see this 50-foot tall sculpture, And I said, well, I do that all the time. And then just listening to the kids are like, it's like the city.
Go down.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. To their scale, I mean, we're looking, like it's seen from above. That's what you're coming away with. So, why not? Take advantage of these young minds that are actually more lucid, more fluid sometimes than actually I could be. I mean, I'm so regimented sometimes about okay, I need to get this way, and loosening up. I think kids are just naturally that. I think one of our best greatest artists, Jean-Michel, obviously was borrowing a lot of the, that facility was, like his drawings, it was like magnificent, the energy of it, but it's a level of sophistication, from an adult.
You've also expressed a connection with Mondrian.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Right over there.
Yeah. I mean, aside from him literally being right over there.
I discovered Mondrian. Yes, he's right there in the cemetery.
Are there other connections,
Well, the grid, obviously. I mean, such a master of communicating abstractions through that formula. And my actually introduction of the grid was not so mathematical. And it was more about, it was just, I need to get the thing out of the room. So it was like breaking it up into increments that were 24 by 24 panels, allowed me to do that. I mean, you make that mistake only once, where you make something and you can't get it out of the equation. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that again, But all in all, as you sort of push through all of this, there are always ways of working around problems. I think that's the thing that stimulates me the most, not only the traveling, but the mind puzzles that you have to sort of the gymnastics you have to go through in order to realize things. I mean, the end result, if they're working correctly, is that you're emotionally affected by them. But I have to actually go through the construction of these things, and create them so that they actually, don't kill me. So there's all this. The backdrop to creating that has to be done before you get on with the better ends, which is stimulating you guys. So as an artist, I think that I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of artist friends, and watching how each of us sort of make our way through all this. I mean, it's a crazy path, and you all have to sort of create, our own kind of not only our language, but our route, So, and it's a life route. It's not, I'm talking about art, but actually this same philosophy can be applied to, your life. It's like, I made sort of decisions with my, by way of my journey. I didn't even know I was making these decisions. I was kind of being pulled. But all of a sudden I found that at my age, I've never been married, no children, It's like, love both things, but it's like, but never had the opportunity to put those things together. But this journey has led me to this. And I think, you look back in hindsight and you say, wow, it's like So what is this all about, you know? So the philosophical questions that come up about who you are spiritually, you know, who you are sexually, all these issues are addressed. I mean, in order to sort of like fulfill like each step of this journey, you absolutely have to answer these questions, you know. They will assist you. Once you open those doors, they reveal, you know, goodness, all kinds of, you know, other questions. I don't think I ever really have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I don't have any answers. There's no more questions, you know.
You guys must have some questions, so, you know, I'm not, we did not, there's nothing planned here.
Yeah,
we're just rolling.
but the other thing is that you guys are, I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the work, and this is all work in progress. So it's like the idea that you guys hopefully have seen or done your homework, so I'm not feeling like I'm coming out of nowhere, but I'm down for questions you guys have. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the transition from the more geometric kinds of shapes to the more natural and
What
organic
geometric
shapes?
These? Those tree parts?
Oh, is that what they are?
Oh, no, those are the actual tree parts. I claim that I'm not a found object artist. There's something that lives in objects. I hate having to sort of like take them and own them. There's already a life beat into those things. I like to create things in the studio. So all of this sort of aging that happens that you may see on the surfaces of my work, it's all, as an alchemy, that's done right here in the studio, except for the tree part. So I don't make trees. Yeah, but like you know, right now, one of the bigger questions for me is this color and trying to sort of work that in. That's why I'm in China and working with these with glazes and with porcelain. So it's just another way of just sort of like adding another largesse to the language, you know.
Is the color right? Is that challenging?
I'm still failing. I mean, I was like, I have not had any success yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, it's been like, I was there in November for 5 weeks. I'm going back. I mean, I learned a lot. The learning curve has been kind of, yeah, I better get it together. I'm going back. We'll
Why
see.
did you
We'll
decide
see.
to not use color and now go back to color?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started out, surprisingly enough, yes, as a painter. And I tied my hands because, you know, there is a point where you get so good at something that it becomes a crutch. It gets in the way of actually, you know, you moving on to the next phase of yourself. And if I can't get to that next place, and there's no way that I can actually honestly, you know, like give you, you know, the proper, you know, you know,
like a challenge.
The challenge is, yeah, I need to have those things. So I mean, I had to tie my hands when I was a kid and say, okay, you're no longer going to be, you know, like drawing or painting. That was like 25, 27 year, you know, hiatus from.
Love that part of the story.
Yeah.
Really,
But I mean, I think when the kids hear that, it's like, especially when you go like the SVA or Parsons and you talk to illustrators or graphic designers, and it's like, you know, the very idea that you will give up a cash cow. You know, it's like, okay, it's like, you know you have this facility and these guys are asking you to like do book covers or comic books or, you know, or graphic design. It's like, well, it's like, but the world is, you know, this is as big as your imagination. I mean, if you have this kind of perspective that's about just, you know, how I can actually get paid from this situation, then of course it narrows your, your experiences, you know. So
Was it too easy? Did you get bored?
It was just, I needed not to be doing things that were easy. You know, that were just not necessarily getting me to the next place. That prettified surface can be so enticing, you know. And I think I mean, I would love to talk to kids, and I always tell them you have to challenge that, you know. It's like, I mean, you can rest on it. You know, I mean, I definitely touched materials. I could have parked it anywhere. I could have been like the black dude that makes cotton pieces, you know. I've done cotton work, you know what I mean? It's like I knew once I hit that, I said, one time on this one, you know, this is way too easy, you know. And when that was in the 90s, you know, I think that cotton wall is still traveling and shows. Have you guys seen it anywhere, like in Bell's exhibition, right?
I saw it in Nashville.
Yeah, right. But they always try to get me to come out and talk about the cotton piece. And I said, no, thank you. And it is way too easy, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, Yeah. Go ahead, honey.
What kind of exposure do students from the community have? Because I know my students in particular have disabilities and there's not much access to even and I'm sitting here looking at it and I know students would be great assistants.
Yeah.
You know, like where they would sit down, you would show them what you want and they would have, I won't say as much heart as you because you're the artist, but want to make you proud and want to work with you to create these.
I always like the idea of that. I've had interns in the past. These are usually older, kids from colleges, but I if the space is bigger, I think I would definitely invest more in that. But definitely going out doing lectures. I mean, this is the one way that I do expose. Coming into the studio, that does happen. We've had busloads of kids coming through. But actually working in the studio, it's just not enough room.
You've had one or two that have sat with you, who would intern with one or two of the
outside of interns that have actually approached me and
because my students are 21, they don't go to college, so they'll never see you lecture. But if someone approached you, not on the street, but you know what I mean, like something more informal and said, I would love to work.
It's about space, honey. It's really for me. It's actually about physical space and how. I mean, because my one of the things that actually I enjoy most is actually the giving part. That usually comes in lectures. I have an opportunity actually to play catch up during lectures because it's not like I'm thinking about all these issues of that. My past, for instance, like all the things. I mean, it's not like I'm constantly thinking about, okay, I'm a kid from the projects, and I'm gonna when I come down to the studio. No, that comes out during lectures, and it's most, it's best used at those moments, because people can actually see the journey. I can see the journey. I mean, this is me actually seeing the journey now because you guys are asking me questions, but it's like it would be a mindless exercise for me to do that every day to remind myself about where I've been. I mean, it's already in my body. But how to sort of get that back is, like I said, it's usually in the lectures. Yeah.
Ty, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question. I find your influence is totally fascinating, whether it's the Pollock or the Mondrian or the grid of the comic book. And I remember watching your film on Art21, and the TV was in the background showing classic films. I was wondering.
It's true. It is.
How is it all? Is that part of your creative landscape, and how does it factor in?
Well, actually, I have probably about 3,500 films. I collect a lot of movies. Outside of just having them on all the time. I definitely follow cinema. From foreign to anime to whatever.
Okay.
I get my hands on it, and it's always about my beginnings because you can see why I will be attracted to anime, but at the same time, why I will be attracted to someone like Terrence Malick. Understanding, temperament, pacing, compositions in film. Ford is really one also who can give you sort of like these fantastic vistas or landscapes, and I like to believe that gravitas can be achieved also in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So you will actually find a lot of artists who are into, filmmakers too.
Yeah.
And they are actually artists. I mean, the way they can pull together compositions, the visuals, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Curious about sort of the ecology of your space. I guess it's sort of like salon de refugee over here. Do you feel precious about things?
No.
Do you like, all right, that's done, just tear it up and use it again?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, my goodness. I mean, most of the works are made from old works. I mean, that tree monstrosity there, I mean, if you look at it, I can actually show you images of like that one down its own at one point. That at the top, that big hump there, that was a piece. There's another one there, that was a piece. And they become absorbed, in effect. The more I touch these things, it's like layers, like the Grand Canyon. There's all this history, So as many times as you sort of like experience and touch them, they become stronger. So I mean, I learned that one, pretty much just by watching, just the weather. How things become worn, they just become more, So it's just something that I just continue to take advantage of.
Have you ever thought about or done like a time lapse?
Yeah, sure. There's actually one that you can see online that did a big installation at the Young in San Francisco, and they filmed this monstrous piece that takes on the 3 walls of the museum. And and I didn't realize it, but they were doing a time lapse thing. And I think that you can still see it online. I think they still play it, but the piece is up until end of October.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you guys are in San Francisco, definitely see it. But it's a monstrous thing, and believe it or not, all those parts were created here. And that piece has gotta be, it is. It's gotta be almost like 5 times bigger than this space. So it's like a lot of material. Yeah, monstrous thing.
Could you talk about how you collaborate with the gentleman here in your studio? Like, I mean, it's sort of like a filmmaker, right? It's sort of
Well, it is actually. I found, when I actually bought this building, I had Clement. I don't know where he is, but he came in to sort of build the space, and then he just stuck around. That's how I ended up with an assistant. So it's like okay, we need wood cut, and it's like next thing you know, it was like when I used to do like maybe 1,200 boxes on the table saw, creating all these boxes. He would sit around and watch me, and it's like okay, it's like I can do that,
Yeah,
I was like okay, you go ahead and do that, and it's like, and you start letting go. So all these very things that demand sort of like this like constant buildup of materials, like I said, 1,200 boxes. I will not build 1,200 boxes anymore.
Yeah.
And there are certain things I just needed to let go of in order to sort of get out and have more experiences, so that I could actually continue to sort of add to the overall language. Before it was just me in the studio, just creating, and it's like and I think that in Art21 that one might have been just as it was like that was coming to a close, that part.
Okay.
And now it's like bringing in even like Melissa to sort of handle paperwork and that kind of crap. It's like I said, I don't want to be doing any of that anymore. So I'm just just became a big boy right before my eyes.
And it's interesting that you had to, decide for yourself to give over some of the work to others and help you out so that you could do other things to...
Yeah, but it happened organically because I didn't realize that it was actually happening. It was kind of like just like a little at a time, and then the next thing you know was like, I became loose, about like, okay, now I need to sort of like get out and see more things.
Was there a point where, the demand for the work just became like you had to...
I was doing it, like, keep in mind, I've been exhibiting since I was 13. The high demand for the work has been since 1992. That's a long time. And so we're talking, I've been keeping up with all of that up until maybe the last maybe 4 years now. That's when I decided, okay, you know what? I'm not doing 1,200 boxes on the table saw anymore. So it was like you need to let go of this, and it's like so it allows me, it allows my mind, it allows me to free up my mind.
Was it difficult at first? Because that's one thing that students, I mean, at least from my perspective, have a hard time getting their head around. They picture, Leonardo Drew or another artist working away in the studio or out there taking food, but it's all themselves. They see just them. So what, was it difficult in the beginning to let go?
It was, and it still is actually. It's just a matter of what you end up letting go of. I mean, I need to sort of like be involved in the overall feeling, direction, material, all the things that sort of make up what these bodies actually need to sort of like to live. So as I sort of push forward, it's like, I know that I can't let go, but it's just like there are just certain things that I say you can't do this anymore because it's like it's so time consuming that in the end it's not making any sense anymore.
There's a question way in the back, Alyssa.
When you were in high school and figuring out how to pursue your life as an artist, or maybe you weren't yet, but like when you were just finishing high school, what would you say was the most important thing that made you realize that you could do it? Was there somebody that showed you how to do the artist life?
Well, I'll tell you, that's an interesting question. I just recently was looking at my high school yearbook, and what people had to say. It was always consistently the same thing. I was a class artist. I was like, you know, you're going to become famous and this. It's like this kind of, and it's like, wow, interesting that there was this kind of, I mean, I was already exhibiting, remember. I was exhibiting still. I was 13, that's before high school when I started exhibiting. And of course, I was making art before that.
So how did you find that opportunity to exhibit?
Well, there were older artists around me. So there were places like there was a cultural arts center in my neighborhood, and what they did was they supplied me. They didn't necessarily come in and actually show me how to do things, but when I was working on say cardboard, they then started supplying me with canvases. And when I was working with markers or whatever, or ballpoint pens, they started giving me paint. And then it just so the language just became bigger. You know, the materials that I used became I mean, you can see that as a part of the continuum that I'm on right now. It's that I go out and continue to sort of add to. So there are older artists around me. Now that's what you guys are to these younger artists. You know, you have to sort of keep them, you know, you'll find the ones that are actually natural artists. I mean, we're not all artists, you know what I mean? But there are some that you know, like I said, look at that high school yearbook, it's pretty obvious. It's but I think you need to sort of nurture that. I was a super addict because my mother actually tried to stop me. So you can imagine how ingrained this was in me. I was born this. So it's and she couldn't stop me. She's a force of nature. So I think that in the end, this is definitely a position you want to be in. I think that it's great to be able to sort of to continue to sort of push. You know, when you see someone that needs to be nurtured, it's a good idea. But I'm not that one. I was a full-on addict. So you know, and it's just continued, and it's I continue to sort of set myself up so that I can have 24/7 of making art. And I did that coming out of college, Cooper Union. You know, didn't do grad school. It was how can I? Well, what I did was I decided I would take on a job. I figured out how much I could actually make in that job, and then if I make this much, I could take 2 years off, and then I could have my full 24/7. And once I did that, I never looked back. So that was 37 years ago. And I hadn't had a job, I hadn't seen the man, and if I had to see the man, it would cut my throat. So I had no plans on ever jobbing for anybody ever again in my life. So I think if you have that kind of determination, is one thing, but you just have to impress upon these kids that in the end, if you do see that this is what they are, it's nurture that, nurture the hell out of that, you know, and and it's, believe me, it'll show, it'll show up for real, you know. It's because it's a no-nonsense life. I mean, this art life it takes no prisoners. You know, the artists that I know who are successful and the ones that I know who are great artists who are not recognized, they don't stop making art. You know what I mean? They don't stop making art. They're still making art, but they're not recognized. I have a number of friends who are like that.
There's just one thing that's so apparent to me here that I guess I would see in your work, but just seeing it actually happening is that labor seems to be
It's labor intensive.
Yeah, it's labor intensive, and you say that sort of dismissively, but I think that in today's world, so many people, the reason why there's a need for the man is maybe because they're not so motivated and determined as you are, and so not just the love of materials, but can you describe your relationship to labor, to work and?
I live here in the studio. I live just above the studio. I've always lived on top of the work. There's never been a time when I take work with me when I go away. Obviously, I'm going to China to make work. Whenever I make an escape, there's always, I need to have that as it centers me. It's who I am. I think that this idea of the labor intensive, that's just my way of creating. I know artists who can definitely do things by way of co-opting other artists to create their works. So it's and not saying those works aren't successful. You know, I have friends like Robert Longo does that, and I think that I've seen a lot of his works. It's pretty good. Solid art.
Yeah, it's just interesting that labor seems as important as the materials you're working with.
Yeah, and then I can actually burn them and take them apart right after. So this is also a part of it's a way of being absolutely honest with what's in front of you, because it does not really matter how much work you put into it. It's actually the journey is the most important part of this. That's why I say you don't necessarily have to be an artist in order to be a part of the journey. You just have to actually have the wherewithal to travel within. There's traveling outside of yourself, and there's traveling within yourself. The traveling within yourself actually can be, super revealing. I mean, it's like who you are as a person is in there. You know what I mean? So I do a lot of that. Obviously, if I'm not married and don't have kids, I don't have that interruption of, it's like I have to constantly deal with that one. So, like I said, this is a life philosophy. It's not an art philosophy.
Jack?
Kind of follow-up question to that. In terms of your process and what drives your process, like one thing that I took away from your interview video was you sort of leave the meaning of your work up to the viewer or to the critics, or that's for somebody else to decide. But then you have other works that are more concept-driven, like the cityscapes and things. But there's this improvisational nature in your work. That maybe that connection to Pollock comes out of that sort of connection to a subconscious process. So can you talk a little bit about what drives your choices as an artist?
Well, connecting yourself to things abstracted, like music, poetry, like, in music I would obviously jazz or classical, things that are more improvisational, that have more to do with, this leads to that, That's what's happening all the time here in the studio. And I do believe as I sort of push through life, there's a constant introduction of problems that need to be solved. So obviously, it's like I said, I don't have all the answers. I think the best position you could possibly be in actually is not knowing. Believing that actually stagnates you. It makes you stop. But the idea of a constant is a not knowing, and then having to resolve that unknown. That's the best part of the journey.
And is the not knowing formal? Is it spiritual?
It's spiritual. It's always that. It's like I can't say that I've grounded so much in the formal, on the physical aspect of my work, because I actually have to create things that you can actually see. This is, like I said, this is just a concrete form of a philosophy. If you can think of it that way.
That's kind of a technical question. So I'm looking at these pieces, and you're talking about making a 50-foot piece in Madison Square Park and worrying about it decapitating somebody. So this is like you as an engineer. This is a question about you as an engineer. And this is where you probably have to be certain. This is where you do have to be certain, knowing that piece on the top there is going to stay up there. So how did you learn that?
Trial and error.
That's it. That's all.
There's a few decapitated people out there.
Nobody got killed.
There's a process of stuff falling down, and then you're like, okay, that didn't work.
No, I haven't had that one so much. I've been really lucky, because I've definitely been on a ladder alone doing things. My head assistant, Mr. Clement, can attest to that. He will come into the studio and say, how the hell did you get that up there? But it's always like, you can always resolve these things. It's just like, okay, you use the ladder as a rail, you can push it up that way, you can do it that way. But you always figure these things out. But definitely, it is trial and error. There's a lot of gluing, a lot of screwing. But in the end, I have not seen that as a problem yet. And hopefully, it won't ever. Richard Serra's had that problem. So it's like, it's just like that. That can you imagine? It's right as a pancake.
Really?
I'm curious about the porcelain, and it sounds like it's very early in the process. But I'm wondering if you've come across those challenges and you see yourself moving in a different direction yet.
Oh yeah, now listen, I'm always constantly being pulled. Roughly about a month ago, the studio, you couldn't get in here. There was so much stuff. And we just have to sort of go through it and say, okay, this is not necessary. Or let's find a home for it, And so there's all this experimenting that can, at times, completely take over the studio. There'll be more experimenting than actual work. Going to China is just an extension of that. It's just
Right,
now
but are you seeing the porcelain being like something that's really taking you in a completely different direction yet? Are you like, or is it too young yet? You're not like.
No, it's a direction.
Right, right.
All of it's a direction.
Right.
I mean, it's a different direction. It's like there's their direction arrows being pointing all over the place.
Right.
So it's like I'm just trying to follow them and try to sort of like place myself. I mean, I was in Africa, Senegal, Dakar, and didn't even realize how I was affected by that visit until years later. I look back on some of the works and say, wow, okay, I can see the catacombs now, in some of these boxes, these claustrophobic boxes, because you're sitting in these dungeons, and it's like, wow, so okay, so what was this journey like, for my ancestors? I said, okay, we got caught, and you got put in a dungeon, then you were put on a ship, you know what I mean? And then it's like it was horror all the way through, a complete scream all the way through, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, are you going to be affected by that? And especially if those are your ancestors, yes, you're going to be affected by that. So as I'm sort of like in the studio, I don't have to say I'm going to make work about our ancestors and what they went through and all. No, man, it's like, I've been out, I touched it, that's enough. Now it's like, it's up to like, okay, the honesty that happens in the studio now, And it's like, okay, years later, maybe I might, that's why I number the things. It's like, why would I force you to sort of realize something that I'm not necessarily all that sure about, But it's like, okay, there are times when I sneak up on people, during exhibitions, and to hear them talk about things that I couldn't even imagine. It's almost like, wow, it's amazing. I hadn't thought of that, And it's like, and they're talking about the work I created, but numbering them gives you just enough space so that they can actually implant self. So there is complicity between the viewer and the artist. And if the artist is honest enough, then he's down for learning about, okay, this interconnectivity between all of us, And it's like, so this journey is not just my journey, it's all of our journeys, It's like, we're all human beings, So it's like, and I think if you think cosmically, then it's like, yeah, we're all related. And we all have something to offer. So it's like, I'm making it work, but, I'm just doing the labor part of it, The story is our story, right? Mm-hmm.
I am sorry that I don't know this, but do you give your works names or numbers? Okay, numbers. Yeah.
All numbers, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know all the numbers though. And a lot of them, I'll call X until they leave the studio. So it's like, so there's a lot of X's in here right now. Yeah, but like, but there are a few numbers that I remember, but no, I can't recall.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, there are points, and I know that there's always a coming together. It's like, there's this always, but there's a point where the merging happens between certain periods. And those are always works I try to hold on to. So I do have actually at home maybe 3 of the most important works.
So it was like a moment where you were like, this worked really well and it led to this?
It's more like it's like with all things, say if I worked with decayed animals. Number 8 is the first piece that was actually made up of decayed animals. And then number 14 happened was oxidized metal, both decayed, right? Number 43 became, why am I telling you guys it's not going to show you the images? Come on. Slide out of the way, let me So, yeah, no. This is actually a book you can buy in the store. Okay, this is number 8, right? This is the detail of it. And it's made up of all kinds of dead critters. I didn't kill any of them. I already did.
Do you feel like an art teacher right now? Do you feel like an art teacher right now? Everybody?
Is this what you guys do all day?
Dead end.
I don't want that job. But that's the mother piece of all my works. And this is like, okay, so we say that. Then you take this piece, which came, this is number 8, right? And this is number 14. All right. So, and believe me, the numbers, they'll tell you exactly where I am in terms of my history and chronology. So, like, this is the finish. Seems like a rusted
So
wall.
how big is that?
This is probably like 9 feet tall.
Okay.
Maybe 6 feet wide. Okay. Now, sometime later, look at this. Unbelievable. Now, can you see how those two works came together?
Yeah.
This is number 43. So just give you an idea, number 8, number 14, number 43, how many pieces were in between that? And this book actually, that you can get on Amazon. yes, but it actually, you can see the in-betweens because there are numbers. But actually I'm working on a book now that should be out in actually another 2 weeks that I designed. I also put all of my sketches and what else is in there? All my notes. It's a cookbook. So it's a Leonardo cookbook. So if you guys want to make your Leonardo, you can make your own Leonardo by getting this book. Yeah. But hopefully you get it on Amazon soon and you can get it. But it's like there's photographs of me actually creating works. Those usually don't make the books for some reason. So they're like there have been folks, photographers who are actually artists too, who come in and they make their art based on what I'm doing in the studio. And so they have like from start to finish works. And so those books, those photographs will be included in this book. So you'll be able to see this sort of like, so it's like I'm giving it all up now. So it's like I'm saying that this is over. I'm going to give up this business and I'm going to go on to something else. I'm going to hand the book over to you guys and you can create your own Leonardo from this point. But believe me, all the notes are in there. So it's like all the recipes. So there's a cookbook. Man, it's a book probably about as big as this one here. So it's but it was a labor of love, you know. And I've been working on it for like 2 years, and now it's like it's done.
That makes me think of your name. Like, did you early on realize who Leonardo?
The nuns at the Catholic school I was going to told me who Leonardo was. I had no idea, and used to get beat up for it. You know, so I mean, imagine growing up in the hood with a name like Leonardo.
Right.
You're going to get a beating. So it's like, that's how that went down. So they told me who Leonardo was, and I said, what? There's another Leonardo.